Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising just delivered its hyped up patch that has been teased by the developers and the publishers as Side Games and Arc System Works for what's supposed to be a big shakeup for the metagame, I think, or at least just like the patch that has sort of been like, guys, this is our first real rebalancing patch. We're not doing just bug fixes or some minor little tweaks. We're going to be buffing a lot of characters. We're going to be changing the game a little bit. And overall, it's a fairly light patch in terms of its content. There are a few changes and some characters that got a lot of changes, but overall, the system mechanics as well as to just the cast as a whole, the consensus seems to be that there's not going to be that big of a shakeup to the metagame just yet. It has been mentioned before as well on the patch notes page that this is not a comprehensive list. There are going to be future adjustments planned. So I think that they're starting off small and going to just kind of add in changes just to slowly change the game, let us get used to a few things, and get that feedback from us before they commit to one particular direction or another. For this series of videos I'm going to be doing on my YouTube channel, we're going to be looking at the characters that got the most important changes. So I plan on looking at characters like Nier, Seox, 2B, I think Avatar Belial got a couple of things as well. Percival, Vasaraga. Those are some characters for sure I'm going to be looking at. There's going to be a lot of characters that just got like one or two small changes. And if I don't know quite enough about those, I might group them up in a video, but I'll see how I organize those things. In the meantime, I wanted to go ahead and look at the two system mechanic changes that happened within this patch and compare it to the old patch. So I actually have it set up where... in this very janky sort of setup that I actually have two consoles with me. One of them is the PlayStation 5 that we were just on before, which has the current patch of Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising on it. And then I have one of my PS4s, which has not been updated with the new patch. So we're going to be doing a side-by-side comparison to what some of these changes look like and what some of these implications are. So starting off with the system changes... we're going to first look at Brave Counter. Now, Brave Counter, I think, is a slightly controversial mechanic. A lot of people say it's way too strong as a defensive mechanic. I mean, you try to bait it. You have to do a very committal thing. If you block it, it's actually the defender's turn. So if someone used Brave Counter, it's now their turn to attack if they made you block it. So that kind of leads to some very... interesting things, but I get why it's as strong as it is. It is tied to a limited finite resource that competes with an offensive option, right? Because you can either spend your brave points on raging strikes to extend your combos or to convert hits, or you can use it on defense to relieve your opponent's offense and say, get off of me, please. Now, the one change that they did do to Brave counters is that they made it so that you can no longer reduce the opponent's HP below a certain threshold. That threshold being about 500 HP. So if we have Vegeta here run up on the old patch, and we Brave counter her, right? There could be some situations where you could push them back, and once you push them back, right, like if you're able to get the punish counter, you can create a situation where it's effectively checkmate, which I'm going to see if I can quickly set up. I think I know how I have to do it. I'm currently doing this with my hitbox controller that I'm not the most comfortable with. This is recording. Right? Okay. So she's just going to do that. Then she's going to be set to block all. Right? So, and then from there, I could, like, try to follow up with another attack, right? But that's basically, like, the idea. If I was able to get a proper punish counter, she'd be hard knockdown state, and you could actually do, like, effectively unblockable setups. Well, not unblockable. Like, setups that would be forcing your opponent or the opponent to block when they're at this chip range. And even then, you could just play RPS with, oh, they could chip me out. Do I spot dodge their attempt to chip me out, or do they bait my spot dodge and then punish the recovery frames of my dodge? That created that situation where you could basically use this defensive mechanic, which is very strong, very easy to use, and get a guaranteed kill situation if the opponent was low enough life, creating a checkmate situation that I don't think was very fun or interesting. And part of that reason is because it's just so heavily like favors the defender. Now, in the new version of the game, Once you get to about this threshold of HP, it doesn't matter how many times a Brave counter, you can see that the HP does not decrease. So this does prevent you from setting up a chip kill checkmate situation from using Brave counter. So I think that's an overall healthy change. You have to kind of force the opponent with your own offense to get them into this chip kill range, which I think is good. I think that's a healthy nerf to defense, and it basically says like, yo, you have to win the game by being proactive, right? You can't just turtle it out, use your Brave counters at the end of the round to set up a checkmate kill. It does mean that spending your Brave counters earlier to Brave counter or your Brave points to Brave counter makes a lot more sense as well. So that's the only change they did to Brave counter. Everything else is the same. It's plus on block. You can really only bait it by leaving gaps in your pressure to then get a Raging Strike input and counter hit that, or by spot dodging it to hard call it out. So they're keeping it as a very strong mechanic for right now. We'll see how that does with the game, especially because they changed something about 6-6L, the dash light attack, and there's quite a few changes. I do apologize for not being able to cut out these transferals between the two different versions of the game. I simply just don't have the software on me to accomplish that right now. So let's do... We're going to go over all the changes that they did in 1.30 for 6-6L, right? So this is in conjunction with a couple of things. They adjusted various light normals in this version of the game to try and make it so that more characters just can consistently use their 5Ls in order to convert the same way that a lot of functional characters were, right? So you'll be seeing some of those changes. I won't go into every unique character that got affected by those. We're going to be looking at what's happened with 6-6L. So we're in the old version of the game right now where there's... I think it's a little bit confusing language because I wonder if they confuse the word hitbox with hurtbox. Hitbox is like the active strike attack. Hurtbox is like where you get hurt by, and some of this language makes me think they're referring to a hurtbox, but they use the word hitbox, but we will see. Hitbox on the inner side has been extended to minimize whiffing when used as a follow-up. So I think this one, that's very much referring to hitbox, right? This is the old version of the game, and we can see here that basically the situation is... If Siegfried is able to connect this, right, almost, except for like the very furthest of ranges, we start point blank and we shuffle through our pressure, where we basically always get the ability to go for a close heavy or a close medium normal. And the same is true, excuse me, I did the wrong button. The same is true for like Jita in this situation, which... So if I take control of her real quick. She's always able to go into these proximity normals, which means she's able to frame trap throws. And she can take a small step forward, and she can always get in there. You'll also note, too, once I turn on the frame data, they did list this one out, which huge shout-outs to Arc System Works and Cygames for including this information in their patch notes. On whiff, it's about 20 frames of recovery, which is very hard to punish. This is a fairly safe option to go for. So that's one of the things that made this annoying. It's a fairly safe option to move. It leads into like looping pressure where you have to make a hard call up by mashing on it, right? And your opponent can easily set it up so that you're playing rock, paper, scissors, and they can frame trap you pretty consistently and get some good damage starters. If we jump to the new version of the game, there's a couple things that they've done. So we mentioned that they did like one little adjustment to it, but some of the nerfs that have happened, right? The hitbox on the bottom side, so like the lower hitbox area, has been reduced to make it possible to counter them with low-hitting moves such as crouching L. So it could be possible where there might be some situations where this can whiff on crouchers. Not sure if Siegfried's going to be the normal to demonstrate this or not, but the idea is that if Jita here were to poke out with a 2L, she'd be more likely to check this attack. But where we can really see the changes is the pushback here. You can kind of see that there's this little vacuum backwards effect on Siegfried, where this wasn't here in the other version that we just looked at. And this is most apparent when I use the Vegeta example, or Vegeta example, where now sometimes instead of getting our... Like, I have to get a very deep dash light. Now, part of this, too, is also the nerf to Vegeta, where her dash attack range got reduced as well. So a few characters suffered a individual nerf to this mechanic. But now, you know, they're not able to get started consistently with their close proximity normals. So they have to run a little bit deeper for these things. So this could be a function of the change where you get pushed back a little bit on block from the new pushback that's there, as well as like the specific change to Vegeta. If I go with Siegfried here in the corner, you know, eventually I run into the same thing with him, right? So this is probably like just more standardized thing where if you loop this, you're not going to always get like your best frame trap normal here. But it still seems like a very potent situation where you can walk up, go for a throw. It seems to be trying to standardize like where you get placed. We'll kind of see a bit more how this all pans out as we get more testing done and see how some interactions play out. My initial findings seem to be like both players will be knocked back on block with the distance the opponent is knocked back being reduced. Right, so you get these situations here. Where again in mid-screen, just like in the old patch, you know, you could pretty consistently get your close proximity normal here with Siegfried. So we kind of have to see what this ultimate overall means and how this changes the offense of the game itself. But it seems to be trying to standardize some of these interactions. And by creating this other distance, it might be easier to check these attacks. The biggest nerf to it is the fact that it is now negative 25 on whiff, meaning you have extra time to whiff punish this normal. And 5 frames can mean the difference between them blocking it and you getting a full punish on it. So that is going to be the largest change that is there. So that's sort of a short look at what Dash Light looks like in the game. I still think it's going to be a pretty strong tool, but as I think players get more time on with the game, we can start seeing how various pressure sequences that have been designed are being changed, like what we saw with the Vegeta example, as well as if it feels easier to check with like these low 2Ls that the cast has, right? Based on how we go from there, and as well as how often we're able to whiff punish this now, this might be a change that we're going to appreciate as we get used to this version of the game. That's it for the overall system mechanics in the game. My other videos are going to be focused on specific characters. Thank you for watching.